All right, welcome to the website section of the training. And so inside of this video, we're going to be talking about something known as minimal viable branding. Okay, so we're going to talk about exactly what that is. And for you specifically as a business owner who's just getting into the game, why it's important for you to understand minimum viable branding or minimal viable branding. Okay, because the very first thing that you need to make sure that you're asking yourself as you start this journey as becoming a new business owner is, hey, what is important for me to focus on at the level of income of where I am at? Because here's the thing, as you ascend to different levels of the game, right? So it's going to be very different when you're at $0 and what you're going to focus on in order to get to, let's say, $5,000 a month. And then from $5,000 a month to get to $10,000 a month is going to be very different. And then to be able to get to, let's say, $50,000 a month and then get to $100,000 a month, right? What you're going to focus on when you're at a six-figure level is going to be very different than what you are going to focus on when you are at a seven-figure level and then when you're trying to get to an eight-figure level, right? So each and every single level of the game is going to have a different focus. And so this is where a lot of people who are just getting started off in the game actually mess up, because they will look at people in the marketplace, people who are in the game who are either further ahead or in a different market or in a different game and say, oh, that person is focusing on that, so therefore I should also be focusing on that as well. And so the biggest thing I want to emphasize to you inside of this specific training really, really quickly is the difference between direct response and branding. Okay, so direct response is when you are exactly what it sounds like, getting a response directly from the customer immediately, right? So think about things like paid advertising, funnels, outbound, email opt-ins, cold outbound, all of those kinds of things, right? Versus branding is more of when you are getting a lot more inbound response in which you are building your online presence, creating content, creating public value, building a following, building word of mouth. All of that comes as a result of your reputation and your branding. And so where a lot of beginners and new business owners mess up is that they do not understand how to be able to balance where they fall on this continuum, right? And so a lot of people think, okay, you know what? Do I do branding or do I do direct response? It's not black or white. It's on what side of this, how much of each of these do you actually do? And unfortunately, a lot of beginners end up thinking, you know what? I got to get famous on an Oprah interview and I got to go ahead and get super, I got to have all this branding in place in order for me to be successful in business. Or sometimes they go all the way to the left side and like, you know what? I'm not going to have anything related to branding and I'm just going to go ahead and just become like this fly-by-night company and just reach out to people and that's going to be it. When in reality, the answer is you got to sit somewhere a little bit more balanced on this spectrum, okay? And so the thing is that in the beginning, you can actually get pretty far with a lot less branding than most people think. And so that's exactly why we call this term minimum viable branding, okay? Because in minimum viable branding, what you want to do is you want to have the bare minimum amount of exposure that is necessary to satisfy most people's opinion when it comes to branding. Okay, so what does that mean to satisfy most people's opinion when it comes to branding? What that means is that you do not want to be a fly-by-night company, because especially in today's world, people are going to go ahead and instantly, as soon as they hear about you, what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and Google your name. They're going to go ahead and look for reviews before they purchase, before anything like that, right? And so if you don't have anything on the internet at all, right? And it's very easy to be, we're going to talk about that, right? Minimum viable branding. It's very easy to go ahead and be able to get a social media presence very, very easily if you follow the steps that we walk you through. So that way you have a little bit more trust, you have a little bit more credibility. And fly by night means that those kinds of companies who are like, scammers, who are like, they don't really invest that much time in their presence or their credibility. And what they do is they just fly by night, they just take a bunch of people's monies and then they just go ahead and disappear, right? They take people's monies. That's what they do. They take the people's monies, okay? And so what you want to do is you want to be able to have enough of a public presence that shows that you are a legit business and that you have authority if and when somebody decides to look you up, right? But not at the same time spending so much time and attention and energy in which, as a beginner business, right, you don't have that much cash flow that you can just say, you know what, I'm going to spend 6 months, a year, 2 years going ahead and building this brand in which you don't have any cash flow coming in, right? Because you got to be able to focus on the sales, you got to focus on your product, you got to focus on your marketing, but specifically a lot more on your direct response marketing when you are getting started out. And so that is exactly why the recommendation that we have for those who are beginner and new business owners, right? And this is going to apply to 80% plus of those who are new business owners is that when you are starting out, because you do not have the cash reserves, the patience, the time, nor the skill to be able to invest in branding for such a long period of time, our recommendation is to actually go ahead and focus a little bit more here on the direct response side of things. And we're going to walk you through, if you follow our steps in the rest of these training sections that we're going to talk about, walk you through what that minimum viable branding needs to be. And in fact, we actually have all of the templates, all of the swipe files, copy and paste already built out for you. So that way it's very, very easy and seamless for you to get your brand up and going. So that way you can go ahead and focus more on the direct response side of things. And again, we have more trainings coming in for you guys in regards to what direct response is going to be there as well. Okay, so that is going to be the overall concept of direct response versus branding, why the recommendation is going to be for new business owners to focus on more on the direct response side of things, but making sure that they get their branding in place. And so that minimum requirement that we do recommend is that you got to have a great website up as well as basic social media presence. Okay, that is what is going to be the general recommendation for 80% plus of new business owners. Okay, and then once you actually start getting into paid ads and those kinds of things, of course, we'll talk about what a sales funnel is, a marketing funnel, a sales funnel, and why that is also a minimum viable asset that is important once you start running paid ads. But at this point, you're probably not running paid ads yet. You probably don't know all the ins and outs of paid ads. And so right now, it is not a minimum viable asset. But once we actually get there and we get into the marketing course, we'll talk to you about how to be able to set that up as well. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do inside of the next and upcoming trainings is go ahead and walk you through step by step how to be able to go ahead and get that great website up. We're going to make it so easy for you. Do not worry. We have everything already, pretty much 80-90% of it built out for you. You just slap on your logo, add some customizations, and it's going to be pretty easy, as well as your link tree, social media presence, and all of that. Okay, so that is what we're going to go ahead and walk you through in the upcoming training, so that way you are educated on how all of this actually works. And again, remember, we're doing this so that way there's a 3-step process here, right? You got to get attention, you got to help people decide that they got to work with you, and then you got to deliver the product, right? So it's marketing, sales, and product. And then within marketing, it's either direct response marketing or brand and content marketing. And we're going to be able to show you and walk you through each and every single one of those. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this has been this specific training section on the minimum viable branding. Let's go ahead and start getting into the tactical in the upcoming next training.